All right, welcome back. So as you can see, this section is all about loops. So if the last section boiled down to making decisions with our code, this section is all about repeating things with our code. And loops are another fundamental part of any programming language, or at least anyone I've ever heard of, because when you're programming, there's a lot of things that naturally you would want to repeat, things that you want to automate. So when first introducing loops, I think a lot of instructors, myself included, do something like this. Hello, student. Have you ever been in a situation where you wanted to print the integers 1 through 7 to your terminal? And have you tried it and thought to yourself, wow, that was a lot of work to print the numbers 1 through 7. Next time I need to print the numbers 1 through 7, I sure hope there's an easier way to do that. Well then, please allow me to introduce loops. With the use of a loop, we can print the numbers 1 through 7. Yeah, so that's kind of my first instinct, and it's how I've seen loops taught a lot of the time with something really trivial like printing 1 through 7, which you're never going to need to do. So I want to show something a little bit more realistic. Recently, I've been exploring the idea of getting a piano, although I'm not sure. I need to figure out how thick my walls are. My neighbors will be able to hear my terrible playing. But I've been looking online, and this struck me as a perfect example of something I could show that uses a loop. A lot of the first things I wanted to do had horrible news headlines on the news, or some sort of potentially offensive content on Reddit, or personal information on Facebook. But I think this is something I can show that won't get me into trouble, hopefully. So anyways, what I want to point out is that there's repetition on this page all over it. 95% of this page is repetition. There's this little sidebar, but otherwise, every result follows the exact same pattern. We have at least one photo, sometimes a couple. There's a price. There's a title. There's a date it was posted. There's the same price down here, and then a city. And a little trash icon. I guess that just hides it from you. I've never clicked it before. So all of this is repeated. So if we were writing code for this, or pseudocode at least, it might look like something like this. For the Yamaha, we're going to print photo. I'll just do, print photo, and then after that, maybe print price. And after that, we might need to calculate location. Based off of the latitude, longitude, we're going to try and figure out the name of the city or the neighborhood, depending on where it is. And we could just say those are the three things we need to do. So then we could do the same thing again. And this time it's for a Wurlitzer. And then the same thing again. And you get where I'm going with this. Let's say this is for a Kawai piano. And for, however many results I got there, we could have that code repeat manually, 1,000 times. I don't know how many pianos there were. And that would be a disaster and a mess. So instead, what we'll learn to do with Python is basically say, for every piano, do this. And it will, print the photo for that one piano, print the price for that particular piano, print the location. And then for the next piano, it will do the exact same thing. And that's exactly what happens here. When this website is generated, the HTML is generated, all of the piano results in the database are retrieved, and then for every one, a couple of operations are run, displaying the photo, calculating the location, and so on. So that's where we're heading, not necessarily to building, a clone of Craigslist or printing photos out necessarily, but the idea of taking data, often collections of data, and doing something to every piece of it. Okay, so let's talk about our objectives, and then we'll get into the code. So in this section, we want to understand what loops are and how they're useful. And we've kind of talked about it a little bit, but we'll also continue to discuss what they are, and there's a couple types of loops we'll see. So we'll talk about what an iterable object is. So when I said there's a collection of data that we will loop through, repeat something for every item, that has to do with iterable objects. Then the two loops we're going to learn are for loops and while loops. And we'll be iterating over ranges and strings in this section. Now, when we learn things like dictionaries and lists, which are coming up, we'll also learn how to loop through those. And then finally, we're going to learn how to control exiting a loop. How do we stop? How do you slam on the emergency brake and quit out if you need to? So those are the objectives for this section. And without further ado, let's get into writing our first loops in the next video. Goodbye, 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 goodbye. Why did I think that was a good idea?